is going on, Washington football fans? This is the Washington Football Report, and we're going to dive into this here in a second. I'm just going to give a quick shout out, kind of give a little bit of the, pretty much comment things that are, getting more followers. First comment on this video as it happens. Let me know what you think of my opinions or my thoughts on things. I want to know yours. Also, like, share, and subscribe. That way, more of your friends can actually see this, and it also helps the YouTube algorithm when people like and share. Subscribe. I want to get over 500 followers for the draft, and then progress from there. Also, follow me on Twitter. It's Washington Football Report or at WFT Report. And then the last one, which is the one that's pictured here, is an app called Cited. It's very fun. I really enjoy it. Basically, it's a debate app. So you can go in there and just do other people's posts, or you can post your own. But basically what you do is you go on there and you'll make a post. You can go on and hit sports, and you'll look at a bunch of polls that people created, like, is this quarterback overrated? Yes or no? Who do you think's going to win the championship? And they'll have a bunch of lists. And you can just literally hit it and see the percentage that's voted, see if you were with the majority or minority, and move on. Or you can join the debate. It's really fun to join the debate. My profile is WFT Report. Most of mine are solely about Washington. So I'd be really appreciated if you guys joined in. And I don't have a lot of followers yet because this is not a lot of people on this app at this moment. But I highly recommend people joining in. So, without further ado, let's jump into what's going on with this video. So, Washington, it has been, the NFL basically started 2 days ago, it's illegal tampering where you can contact players. If you were coaching a team, or if you had a player on your team last year, you could legally talk to that player only. You couldn't talk to players on other teams unless they were completely free agents, like they were cut or released from their contracts, like J.J. Watt. Legal tampering started about 2 days ago, and nothing was going on. And then Washington made some moves at like 10:30 on Monday night, and then like 10:30 on last night, at Tuesday night. So Washington has done a few things so far in this offseason. I'm going to go ahead and go over. This video will be solely based on what they've done up to this point and what I project they're going to do going forward. So, like, free agent signings, who they've lost in free agency, things like that, and who they've already signed, like who they've re-signed, who they've signed, things like that. So, without further ado, let's dive into this first part. So, the first part here is this is a list of re-signings that Washington has had. Brandon Sheriff was the big one. He's franchise tagged, and they're working on a long-term deal. I hope they get a long-term deal done. I don't think he's worth $18 million a year. I don't think a guard should be paid that much. I'm okay even $15 million. If you, I have a thing called Sports Track on right over here, right here. And if we look up Brandon Sheriff and what he's projected like $12 million. I'd say you're going to get a little bit above that because he is an All-Pro. So I'd say $15 million would be fair, but $18 million this year, I think it's a little bit of an overpay, but hopefully get a long-term deal so it comes down a little bit, and they might just give him more guaranteed money and spread it out or something like that. But it's good to have Brent Sheriff back. He is an All-Pro. He is in his 30s. He's pretty much in his 30s. So that's kind of my qualms with it. I don't like signing older players that long, but he's determined to retire a Washington football player. So Taylor Heineke, not really a big signing, but it is big in the sense that I think if he's healthy, I think Washington can win games with him. He knows the offense. He's not afraid to take risks. And with he actually played the best against the Super Bowl champions last year in the playoffs. I know it's like a one-game sample, but there's not a lot of game film on him too. So there's a lot of back and forth about that. But I think Taylor Heineke, we can win games with him if we had to. We have a quarterback we've signed. I'll get to that a little bit later. But I was okay with this because it wasn't that much money, and we got a quarterback that we could win games with. Cam Sims, big receiver. He played the number 2 receiver a lot last year. I don't think per se that he is a number 2 receiver. I think he does pretty well in the 3rd receiver spot better. But he can play number 2 against some teams. But when you get against some teams that have like 2 good corners, I think he has like a little bit less. But he shows up, and he makes some pretty good catches. He also drops some big ones. But I like the fact that we signed him, and the amount we signed him for is not that expensive at all. It's like $600,000 or $800,000 or something. So, I mean, I'll take as many decent players as we can get at that price point, because you never know. This year might be his breakout year, and all of a sudden we have ourselves a good second option or third option at receiver or fourth option, whatever. Chase Roulier, I count him in this because he basically was a re-signing, is extended. 4 years, $40 million. So we got him in the draft. 6th round. Been a great pickup for us. Dustin Hawkins, I'm mad about this. I don't really care either way. It's good that we have a kicker on roster and one that can make good kicks, but also it's Dustin Hawkins and he misses some easy ones. Lamar Miller, technically is a re-sign. We signed him last year whenever Gibson was getting hurt, just to make sure we had enough for running backs for the playoffs. And then David Sharp, who is just a utility offensive lineman, basically. He's just depth at the left tackle and the right tackle. So, yeah. Next, losses. We lost Alex Smith, Ronald Darby, Kevin Pierre-Lewis, and Thomas Davis. So Alex Smith was cut he's a franchise salary cap casualty. We saved almost $15 million cutting him. I hope he goes somewhere and succeeds. Washington is just looking for a longer-term solution, a better longer-term solution at quarterback than Alex Smith. Ronald Darby played very well for us. I was hoping we get him back, but at the price point that the other teams out there were going to give him, he just wasn't going to make it back to Washington. Same with Kevin Pierre-Lewis. I'm curious how it's spelled. Pierre. There we go. All right, I'm good. All right. Kevin Pierre-Lewis, he went to the Texans. He got a good deal. He got more money there than we were willing to give him. So I think Washington has some plans at all this, and 2 of them have been taken care of already. The other 2 are linebackers, and they haven't been taken care of yet. So we shall see. I think Washington has some plans at all those things. Now, Washington and free agency, see, it's a double-edged sword because you want Washington to be aggressive and just go balls to the wall crazy in free agency. But you got to trust Ron Rivera. You got to trust that Ron Rivera has a plan. Last season, Ron Rivera came in with no training camp, and all of his signings panned out. There's not one signing on this list that didn't in some way have a positive impact on the season last year. Ronald Darby was, I wouldn't say he's all pro, but he was definitely a good corner for us. He did not have a bad year at all. J.D. McKissick had a fantastic year. Logan Thomas was pretty much no one wanted him, and then we signed him, and he's practically a number 1 tight end in the league. Let's make sure. Okay. Kendall Fuller, Wes Schweitzer, Cornelius Lucas, Peyton Barber, all of them have played well last year and are integral parts of the team this year. So I do want to trust Ron in his player analysis. I think he feels that he can get more out of guys than other coaches, and I'm kind of inclined to believe him and put faith in him. And then if you look at his draft is the same thing. Chase Young, Antonio Gibson. No one saw Antonio Gibson coming. I predicted the Charles and Gandy-Golden ones. I think those 2 are just still the jury's out yet. We don't know much. We don't know enough about them because Antonio Gandy-Golden didn't have an offseason. He has raw talent, and Charles was hurt. Keith Ishmael, I don't know what he's going to be. I think he's just a utility inside line or lineman somewhere, like backup, where he might be a special team or maybe he's a long snapper. I don't know because we did let go of Nick Sudfeld. I didn't want to put that Sudberg, whatever his name is, Sudberg. I'm gonna look that up real quick to make sure I say the right name. Yeah, but we released. Basically, they said that they're not going to sign him back. Poor guy. I mean, he's been with Washington for like ever, and I would like to see him back, but it is what it is at this point. So I can't find him. It's Nick's. I think it's Nick Sudberg. I'll just Google it. Sundberg. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, he was not extended. He was not brought back to be a part of the Washington football team this year. It's a shame because I think we could have got him back for like $1 million or $2 million. But it is what it is. Cleek Hudson was another player that we drafted that was a good special teams player, and he's probably going to be an integral part of the linebacking core / safety core. He'll be like a nickel player this year. Cameron Curl was one of the best players drafted period last year. Panned out really well. Statistically, was one of the best corners in the league. I'll go back to Gibson for a second. Gibson, if he would have got injured, Gibson would have easily won Rookie of the Year. He had over 1,000 rushing yards. He had a lot of touchdowns. He was crushing it. And no, I did not see that coming. I did not think for a second we were going that route. I thought we were going to stick with Adrian Peterson, Bryce Love, McKissick, Peyton Barber. I thought we were going to go that route, and that was going to be our solutions at running back, but I did not foresee that coming. But it was a great selection there. And then a low-key one that I think that's going to actually have an effect this year on our offseason that a lot of people aren't considering is Thaddeus Moss. I think Thaddeus Moss is one. He had a broken foot last year. I forgot about that. And so if we go into the next season and Thaddeus Moss is decently close to what he was at LSU, we could really have a good tandem already on our roster without having to draft the third guy. So, or sign a third guy. So we'll see. We'll see. We got Thaddeus Moss for 3 years on a really cheap deal. So I don't think Ron wants to not go that route and look at what we got. So the first free agency signing is whatever you want to call it, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now I'm going to be bluntly honest here. I don't know what the hell we're doing when it comes to Ryan Fitzpatrick. Okay, the whole mantra last year was we need a quarterback that's going to take care of the football, that's going to be able to run the offense, doesn't have to get touchdowns all the time, but just don't put the defense in a bad spot and let our defense win games. That was pretty much the mantra last year of our team. And so Alex Smith, and I'm not advocating to get Alex Smith back, don't get me wrong, but Alex Smith is the embodiment of take care of the football, check down Charlie, whatever you want to call it. And then we go the exact opposite direction in Ryan Fitzpatrick. Schematically, it doesn't make sense. I don't know how you're going to stand in front of your team. Like I said, we got to trust Ron. He has a history of this. He's pretty good at this. I don't know how Ron stands in front of his team, his young team with a young defense and young stars, and says, hey, this 39-year-old quarterback says take us there. I don't see that. Okay? Now, what's my theory on that? I think Washington has him just to have another quarterback on the roster. It's going to draw in a big wide receiver target, and we're going to either trade up in the draft, which I don't think Ron actually likes trading up in the draft at all, or we're going to trade away a later pick to get like a Sam Darnold or a Mariota once the dust settles and people are realizing the market for those two is not very high. And I think Ron will take the low risk, high reward on those, and then it'll be a three guy competition in training camp for quarterback. It'll be Fitzpatrick, which he's getting $10 million at the most $12 million. He knows his role. He's come in and he's there as a stopgap. And then you have Taylor Heineke, who gets injured a lot, and then whoever they trade a pick for, once they realize that the market is not as high as the Jets market is not as high for Sam Darnold as they think, they'll end up giving like a 4th or a 5th round for it. I didn't mention this, but there is apparently a pretty decent upside to not signing Ronald Darby. Because Ronald Darby walked, apparently we get like a compensatory pick. It could be a 3rd or a 4th round pick, but regardless, it's a pick. So that's another pick we could add into our arsenal. It might be while Washington just let him walk without even extending him. So we can get another pick, and we got another corner. Now, let's get back to Ryan Fitzpatrick. So here's to reinforce why I don't think this is such a great idea. Here's the guy's stats throughout his career. Okay? 34,977 passing yards. The player has played, and I'm going to bring up my phone real quick, and I'm going to bring up Ryan Fitzpatrick stats and see how many seasons he's played and all this good jazz. So give me 1 second. Let me bring up I don't want to mislead anyone. I don't want to say the wrong thing. So he has played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 seasons. Okay? And in 16 seasons, he has... Nope, I hit the wrong thing. 16 seasons, Ryan Fitzpatrick has 34,977 passing yards. Divided by 16, that's less than 2,200 passing yards a year. Granted, let's keep in mind that he does play backup most of the time, and then he gets thrown in. So 223 touchdowns divided by 16. That's basically 14 touchdowns a season. It's less than 1 a game. And then 169 interceptions divided by 16. That's about it's a 10.5, so about almost 11. interceptions per year. So he's putting up 2,200 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions every year. It's not exactly to write home about. And he also has a decent QBR, actually. I'll give him that. His QBR is not horrible. And completion percent is not very good. 61% is not very good. And not mentioned here is a couple other things. Literally has never been in the playoffs. He's had one winning season as a starting quarterback. He's only played more than 6 games, like 4 times in his career. He's just a lot of things that don't add up to why we're doing this move. The only thing I can think of is Washington's not willing to give up a high pick for Sam Darnold or Mariota. So they got a quarterback. They at least a receiver can look legitimately and say, okay, this guy will at least throw me the football. Let's bring him in. And then whenever the market goes down for these guys that haven't been traded for yet, Washington swoop in with a 4th round pick or something and scoop the player up, and then that's why we're doing that. And then we can literally, I don't know, we might just cut him. I don't know, but I don't know. I don't understand this move. I don't understand this move at all. I just don't see how it's a locker. I know he's a good locker room guy, but his leadership is not a winning leadership. The guy has to win 30 games right now in a row before he'll hit 500. Before he wins half his games. It's like 32 games or something like that. He's like 50-something and 80-something as a starter. It's not very good. I'm not trying to sit here and bash Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick, he is what he is. He knows what he is, and people know what he is, and they don't expect anything different. I just don't understand it. Does Ron think that he can be the coach that gets through to him? I don't know. Like I said, I don't hate it. There's definitely worse quarterbacks we could have had that I would have been very mad about. What I honestly think it was is all these other quarterbacks out here that were available wanted long-term deals. They wanted deals where they could sign 3 years at like way more money or more guaranteed money, I guess. I don't know. And Washington doesn't want to do that because they just need a stopgap while they draft somebody or trade for somebody or whatever the case may be. I hope we're not just this. It's not just Ron Fitzpatrick and Taylor Heineke. I really hope it's not the case. But like I said, I don't understand it. One thing I can fathom is that Washington has plans to trade up in the draft and get somebody, which Ron traditionally does not trade up. He'll trade back, but not up. Or we'll just draft normally, and then in like a later rounds, we'll trade our pick away for like a Sam Darnold or something. That's the only thing I can think of. Unless we sign someone else, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not happy about this. I'm not like upset. It's better than Cam Newton. It's better than a couple other options, but I don't know. This doesn't like just inspire me. That's the best way to put it. So, and we do have one more free agent signing. This is why Ronald Darby and getting rid of him was not that big an issue, because we signed William Jackson. If you don't know William Jackson, it's because he played in a small market in the Bengals. And he didn't have blowaway stats because teams didn't throw towards him. He is a shutdown corner, probably a top 10 corner in this league. He's a top corner being paid like a second-rate corner. The money we gave him is a little bit more than Darby got, but I think that's why Washington was okay letting Darby walk. They get a draft pick, and for the next 3 years, we have a better overall player. Not as injury-prone as Darby. I think this kid missed his rookie year, but he's played consistently over the last few years. And this makes it so much easier on the defense. He's gonna get so much better because our defensive front is going to give him so much time. All he has to do is sell out and cover quick and cover early, rather than because they won't have time to develop and get to the deep ball, so he can sell out on those first routes and things like that. This is a good sign. This is a very good sign. This is the exact opposite. I have the exact opposite feeling I have about this signing as I do about the Ryan Fitzpatrick signing. This one's solid. This one is grade a good signing. Okay, so I did want to show one thing real quick. I found this. It's just one picture of the potential Red Wolves logo. I know they've been talking about changing the name. So here is a handful of. This is basically all the free agents that are available. So with Washington getting a corner, we basically have 2 good corners with 2 good backups with Moreland. And I don't remember the other one, but we have Fuller and Jackson now. So now we need to look at basically 3 or 4 other positions on this team. First one is receiver. Okay, so I'm going to go through all the receiver options that Washington can do. So these are the main receivers that are available. T.Y. Hilton, Samuel Watkins, Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Kenny Galladay. Let me look at Curtis Samuel. Did I click on him? No, I did not. Okay. So, right now, Washington is looking for a second receiver. I personally think Washington is going to go with a bigger receiver like Kenny Galladay or Juju Smith-Schuster, and maybe like Will Fuller. It's a possibility, but Will Fuller I think is wanting too much money. He's not as good as he's listed. He's played on teams that have had players that have moved attention away from him. So that's why I think he's making that much. He wants that. He's looked that good, but I don't think he's as good as people think. Basically, I think Washington should get a big receiver that can absorb a lot of targets and will keep teams honest because they can't key on Terry McLaurin and they also can't key on this guy. This guy has to be completely. It has to be like a complete option where we have like a good number two that keeps teams honest. They can't cheat to one or the other. I think Juju Smith-Schuster and Kenny Galladay are the two players that do that. Okay, I think they're the two best players and the two best options at receiver that Washington can get. There are a couple other options out here that you can get if you want to go like prove it talent, stuff like that. DeMarcus Robinson wouldn't be bad. Antonio Brown. I'm not getting too much into the rest of those. Yeah, I'm not getting into the rest of those. But Juju Smith-Schuster, I actually think him or Galladay either one would be great. They're both about 16.5 million, maybe 17 million. The way Washington is playing the free agency market right now is everyone else is just spending all their money. They're overpaying for players. They're spending all their money. Like the Patriots spent over $200 million in like one day. And I think Washington's sitting back and they're going to be the only team left at the table with money. And they're going to have all these players that, want to get like at least get paid this year. So they'll take smaller contracts. And Washington will be able to dictate the market that way. So Curtis Samuel is 12.5 million basically. A lot of people want him because he played for Ron. He's got speed. I don't dislike Curtis Samuel. Let me just keep that clear here. I don't dislike him. I don't think Curtis Samuel's a bad player. The problem I have is we already have a speedy slot receiver. And if we needed one, this draft is loaded with them. Okay? There's a lot of guys in this draft that are going to be speedy wide receivers that I think are less of a risk than paying Curtis Samuel like $50 million over the next 4 years. This is a lot of money over the next 4 years. So I'd rather pay someone else like Juju Smith-Schuster or Kenny Galladay, who I think can be a legit number two and will absorb more targets because they're bigger targets. And they'll be able to move the sticks with them rather than just having someone who can only go for deep balls, which is what I think Curtis Samuel, it's not his only forte. He can definitely catch the ball in other situations, and he can be used in the offense in other ways. But I think he's only going to be used in those ways. And a better option to me is Kenny Galladay. Kenny Galladay is the one I would choose. He's a big receiver. Him opposite of McLaurin, he's 6'4". It's a good target. He can do jump balls. He can do all the right things. I think Juju Smith-Schuster is pretty tall too. Let me check him real quick. And yeah, I searched in Bing. Don't at me. I like Bing. Kenny Galladay is by far the best one. Pay $17 million for him a year. 5 years, $85 million, or 4 years, like $68 million or something like that. And I think we can lock him in at our second receiver. And the way the draft is this year, the draft has a lot of speedy receivers. I'll go over that if you want me to. But there's a lot of speedy receivers in the draft that I think we can get like day 2, day 3. And we don't have to spend that much cash right now. That slot receiver, Curtis Samuel will cost $13 to $14 million. Kenny Galladay will cost $17 million, so a little bit more. And then we're going to get another receiver in the draft later round that's going to cost maybe $1 million. So for 2 receivers, we're going to spend less than $20. Whereas with Curtis, you're going to spend like 12 or 14, and then you're going to draft someone. Some people want to draft someone in the first round. I'm not all about that life. I don't want to draft a receiver in the first round. I don't think anyone there is going to fall to us unless it's like Devontae, or whatever the guy won the Heisman. I can't think of his name right now. Unless it's him, I mean, I'll take that all day. But he's not going to be available. This is not. So wide receiver is an option we're going to look at. Another option is safety. Now, I think safety is another one that has a decent amount in the draft, and there's one I'd target in the draft for sure. But you got Anthony Harris. Apparently, that's where he wants. That's where he wants to go. He wants to play on this defense. $14 million. I would pretty much take that in a heartbeat. I thought Justin Simmons got franchise tagged. I really thought he did. Kareem Jackson would be another bad one, but he'd only be like a 1-year rental. He's up there in age. So there's not Trey Boston's another good option. So there's a couple options that Washington go at. Oh, never mind. I found the one I want. Carl Joseph. Yeah, let me see that market value on him. Yeah, Carl Joseph, $8.2 million. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. Sign Carl Joseph. That is a no-brainer. That guy can play, and you put him alongside Cameron Curl. That's a no-brainer. I'm sorry. I did not know he was a free agent right now. I guess I need to click on this just to get more. Yeah, Carl Joseph, $10 million a year for the next 2 years. Sign that cat. Okay, now, here's a couple things that with the Washington's cap space right now. Right now, we're at $21.299 million. So $21.3 million is basically where we're at. Washington, I think if Washington goes for that safety, one of those safeties, they can cut Landon Collins and save another $9 million. So let's hypothetically say Washington signs Kenny Galladay. Galladay. Kenny Galladay. And they sign him for 1 year. It's going to be more than 1 year. I was just trying to hit out how much money it would cost this year. And he might actually be less this year, and they give him a bonus, and they spread it out over the next few years. So let's say they do that. They pay him only like $12 million this year. 12. Okay? And they spread out the signing bonus, and they spread it out over the next few years where it hits the cap. Okay, now Washington has $17 million left. We can get a safety, Carl Joseph. I do think there's some in the draft we can get, but let's just say we go for Carl Joseph. Is it a C or a K? Oh, it's okay. That's okay. Carl Joseph. Let's see if we get Carl Joseph for pretty much kind of the same thing. It'll be like a 3-year deal, but it only costs us $6 million because the signing bonus is like another $4 million or whatever. So we get him on the board for on the books for $6 million this year. Washington's $11 million we can play with. And that gives us opportunities to sign other positions. That's receiver, that's the safety, and then we're looking at 2 other positions we really need to look at this year. Linebacking core is a big one. I don't think a lot of linebackers are going to cost $11 million. I think some are going to cost a little bit more than that. Let's look at the value of all these players are. Levante David. I know Levante David is one I really liked. Avery Williamson, KJ Wright. I want to look at the market value for a lot of these guys. I'm just curious. I don't know. $12 million. I paid $12 million for Mark Ingram. David's a little older, but he's a good player. Leonard Floyd, Avery Williamson. That's not a bad one. $7.5 million. KJ Wright is a very good one. You can get him for a 2-year deal. 2-year, $14 million. $7 million. Then you still have enough money to pay your free agents. And then in the draft, you focus on offensive line. But I actually don't think they're going to sign that many free agents unless they have – it's late in free agency and there's guys just desperate to get on a team. But the tackle market right now is not the greatest for Washington to look. So I think they're going to draft tackle, and they're probably going to get at least one linebacker in free agency, and they're going to draft a linebacker. So that's what I think Washington will do with their free agent target. So if you look at that, and let's just say Washington, let's go back to linebacker real quick. Let's just say Washington does go the route of linebacker, and they go the route of, let's just say it's KJ Wright. There are other players out there that I think Washington can get, But let's go with KJ Wright. KJ Wright, $7.2 million. Let's just say Washington pays him $7.5. Okay, let's just say Washington pays him. We pay him $7.5 million this year. We might actually pay him less this year and just push it out to future years. $7.5 million. We still have $5 million left. That pays for all of our draft picks. Okay, and I still think we need to trade Jonathan Allen, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. We're not going to have the money to extend him next year. It's going to cost too much. I'd rather extend McLaurin than Jonathan Allen and draft someone. I have a mock draft. I'll do one right. I'll do one here in a little bit, but I have a mock draft. Actually, I'll just do it right now. I have a mock draft I've been doing, and I think a couple of things are going to happen with Washington. So I'm going to assume all the things I just said is what's going on in the draft. Washington signed a linebacker, and now they're just looking for. Washington is looking for. They're looking for another linebacker, an offensive tackle, maybe a tight end to help. Some things like that. So Washington, I actually think Washington is going to trade down in the draft. I really do. I think they're going to trade down or trade back, not trade up for a quarterback. Going to trade back, and there's a lot of good options for Washington. This one right here is actually a really good one because you get 2 seconds. They would lose a third, but I think 2 seconds is very powerful in this draft because you can get a lot of high caliber players. So I'm going to actually do that right now. I'm going to go to my pick, and then Washington will draft. It might be a little bit of a reach. I think this guy will fall a little bit later in the first round, but at inside linebacker, Zaven Collins. He's going to be a B+, but Washington's going to go with what their needs are more than like best available. And then Washington has some options, and I think with offensive tackle, they're going to go with the Samuel Cosmi. Samuel Cosmi is a very solid offensive tackle out of the University of Texas, Texas University, whatever you want to call it. There's a couple options that you have with offensive tackle and offensive guards and things like that. But I think offensive tackle is a bigger need, especially because Cornelius Lucas's contract expires this year. And so we've traded up. Usually that pick is like the 19th pick in the draft. But this is what Washington needs. And then Washington will also probably need a tight end at the 13th pick. So Brevin Jordan is someone that I've consistently had my eye on with tight end. It's going to be either him or the cat out of the guy out of Penn State. I'm more of I like Brevin Jordan's talent better. So it's going to be one of those two. I'm going to pick Brevin Jordan. It's going to give me a lower grade though, so don't be surprised if it's like not an A+. Okay. So that's what Washington was going to do with their first 3 picks. And I do think they're going to trade back. I think they're going to trade one of their picks, like the 4th or a 3rd or something like that, or maybe like a 3rd next year for Sam Darnold, and or another quarterback that's not Sam Darnold but someone else. So 3rd pick, what does Washington really need? Well, safety, we can add some depth at safety. There's definitely a good option at safety for depth. There's definitely receiver options as well, but I think you can get a receiving option that suits Washington's skill set a little bit later. So I actually think Washington will go with another offensive talent, offensive guard, or a linebacker. I think they're going to draft 2 linebackers in this draft. So we're going to go the route of another offensive lineman. I don't know which one I want to pick right now, but I think I'm going to go with the kid from BYU. Or Oklahoma. That's a tough decision. We might go running back. I don't know. I don't think we will. I'm going to go with offensive tackle. It's A. Good. I like that. Jacksonville. We have Jacksonville's pick. So now we need to look for some depth. We are going to lose one of our defensive linemen this year. Maybe both. We might not re-sign Tim Settle. So I think Washington will address that in the draft and get someone that will replace Tim Settle next year if he walks, or if they keep Tim Settle and get rid of Jonathan Allen. a lot of people are like, well, you want to get rid of. I don't want to get rid of anyone. I wish they had a rule in place that if you draft someone, you can sign them as long as you want, and it doesn't affect your cap money. But the way it is I'd rather re-sign Montez Sweat, Terry McLaurin, and Jonathan Allen. No, not Jonathan. I'm sorry, Chase Young. I'd rather resign those three guys. I think Payne does better at hogging blocks and creating space for linebackers. Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen is playing opposition. Jonathan Allen was a defensive end in college. He's playing opposition. Last year, what was he? He wasn't a defensive tackle. He was a defensive end. Okay, that's just what he is. So I think Darius Styles would be a good pickup there. He plays in a I think it's a 3-4 or 4-3. I don't know. He absorbs a lot of blocks in college though. So now what is Washington looking at? We got a defensive tackle, linebacker. We could go another linebacker here, but I think the receivers that I'm looking for might be available at this point. It's in the 4th round. I might have lost my receivers. I'll have to look. I might have actually lost the receivers that I was looking for. Let's see if they're available still. Shoot. Okay, so Rodgers is still available. I think Rodgers is one that could fall to our lap next. Let's take him now. I think Rodgers is a player that can fall in our lap. He's speedy. It's either him or Marquez Stevenson out of Houston, or the two speedy receivers I think will fall into the 4th round that we can pick up. Okay, so now at this point, it's just basically, just filling spots that we need depth at. Always need depth at corner, so let's see if there's any corners available that are pretty decent from some pretty good name schools. You could obviously get another offensive lineman, like a guard. A guard wouldn't be a horrible option right now because we don't exactly have a bona fide starter at left guard. I mean, Shadiq Charles and Wes Switch are going to compete for it, but that could be another option. But I think Washington will go corner in the 5th, and in the 7th round, we might go running back, just add a little bit of depth to the running back room. Let's see what else Washington could grab. I kind of want to grab another an offensive guard or something, but I don't think there's enough left. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to do that. And there's a lot of wide receivers left. I don't want to draft another wide receiver. I'll draft Rakeem Boyd. He's a running back out of Arkansas. And the last one, it says me a free safety, but we just signed one, but I'll grab one anyway. The kid out of Penn State. So, if you're looking at that draft, so if you're looking at our roster, you're having this offseason, you signed a quarterback, and like I said, I think we're going to trade one of these picks anyway for, what's his name, a quarterback anyway. It's a possibility we trade up. I personally don't think that. My grade on this is an A. It's always an A because I do pretty well at this. But that's just what Washington would look like because they're going to spend money out in certain spots. They're going to have money left over to spend in free agents or on rookies, and I'd rather just trade down the draft and fill positions and see what happens. Ron's very good with player development. We proved that last year, and his player analysis is pretty good. So, now I know I bounced all over the place in this video, but I just wanted to go over a lot of the things Washington has done, they are doing, and they could do when it comes to what their next step is in free agency and what they're going to do with the draft because of the way the free agency is going to play out. Thank everyone for watching. This has been the Washington Football Report. This is JD. I want to wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day. And that's it. Thanks for watching my video. Hail to the Redskins. See you.